My mic was muted. We're going to do it again. Good evening and welcome to tonight's show. I am your host, Tina Dawson, the owner of True Blue Designs, and I thank you so much for tuning in. We are streaming simultaneously on our Facebook page and our YouTube channel at True Blue Designs. Now, I invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the notification bell so that you can be alerted when new content becomes available. Tonight's guest is Dr. Keshius Williams. Dr. Williams is a certified life coach, a sought after motivational speaker, a parenting expert, and an international storyteller. Dr. Williams tonight is going to give us tips on how to live a purposeful life. Help me give a warm welcome to tonight's guest, Dr. Keshius Williams.
Thank you, Tina.
Look, my help is gone, so hold on. We're going to get it together tonight. There you go. Look, I was talking and my mic was off.
I love it, but we got it running now, up and running now, so it's all good.
Thank you so much for saying yes and allowing me to interview you tonight.
Yes, you are so welcome. There's no other place I would rather be than right here doing this interview with you.
Listen, we've known each other for a long time because our kids have gone to the same school. They've had the same academic excellence that we put in them. We made them.
Yes,
and
right.
They're still friends today. So I said, I remember when you wrote one of your books and we came to see you. I think we were at Stonecrest Mall. We met up with you.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Yeah, to get one of your books. Yeah, and I gifted that book to Damaris. So I've been following your journey. Yes. And I wanted to bring you on the show to introduce you to our viewers and allow you to, a platform where you can tell your journey and inspire women, inspire people overall just to be better and to live a purposeful life. So I'm going to start off by allowing you to tell the viewers a little bit about yourself.
Yes. Okay. Thank you so much. Well, again, my name is Dr. Keshius Williams. I am a life coach. I am a mom of 5 amazing children, ages 29 to 15. I have my first granddog, okay? Not grandchild, my granddog, okay? I've been married 20 amazing years. I have to throw amazing in there because 20 years is different than 20 amazing years, okay? But mine have been amazing. So, and that's a little bit about me. I am an avid learner. I call myself a professional learner because I absorb knowledge. I love knowledge and information. And I'm walking in my purpose. And I'm doing what God has called me to do. So that's a little bit about, and I write children's books.
Yeah. and we're going to make sure we talk about those books. Now, are you originally from Atlanta?
Absolutely. Originally, I am from Decatur, straight from the deck. Okay.
What school did you go to?
I went to McNair High School. I graduated in 91, homecoming queen, all of that good stuff.
Okay, because I went to Columbia.
Oh, Columbia. Get down your flag.
All right.
Look, back in the day, that's what we used to say. You know what I'm saying? But I love Columbia. As a matter of fact, I got a story about Columbia, a good story too.
Oh my goodness, that is too funny. Yeah, you just see again, we've been friends for this amount of time and never knew that we both were from Decatur.
And never knew it. And Columbia, I used to run track when I was in high school, right? Okay. And this one meet was at Columbia that I never forgot. Okay, it's crazy because I ran like the 100-yard dash, and I was the youngest one to be on the varsity team. I was 9th grade, and I ran against the best sprinter at Columbia, and I beat her. She was a senior. And
Wow.
boy, they talked about her so bad that they let a ninth grader beat them in running. And I never forgot that moment. So anytime you say Columbia, that's exactly what I think about.
There you go. You look, your mind goes back to track.
Yes, it does.
Right, right. So let's talk about a little bit about your educational journey. So you went to McNair. So what did you do after that?
So after I graduated from McNair, my path kind of took a different turn. I didn't go straight to college. I ended up having a kid, and then it wasn't until I met my husband that I decided to go back to school. It was actually his dad. I call him my gift dad because he is definitely a gift to me. And he would always encourage me and say, daughter, you want to go to school? You want to go to school? And I'm like, Dad, no, I'm already doing everything I want to do. There's no need for me to go to school. And he was like, well, if you ever want to go to school, you go. So that kind of just lit something in me to where I'm like, you know what? It's time for me to be the example I expect in my children. We can't tell our children to go to school, go get your education, and you not do it.
Yeah.
So with that in mind, I had to be that leader for my kids. And in 2008, I went to school. I got my undergrad degree in business administration, and I graduated in 2012. But I wasn't doing anything with my degree because, again, I already had these businesses. I was successful, and so because I wasn't doing anything, I said, well, I took about 3 years off, and in 2015, I decided go back to school. Just, you already know what it's like to get an undergrad. Go for your master's, right? So I went for my master's in 2015. I got my master's in 2017. And then I was like, oh, I like this. School is easy. I thought college was easy, okay? Who does that, right? So then I was like, well, shucks, I'm already in my groove. I know, what I want to do. Let me go for a PhD.
Wow.
2017, I got my PhD. 2017, I enrolled in a PhD program, and by 2020, I became a doctor.
Wow.
Yeah. Yep.
Wow.
So here I stand, and my doctorate is in advanced studies in human behavior. So I love everything about the human mind and how it thinks and why we think the way we think and how our experience shape the way we think, including our values, our morals, and our standards.
Yes,
so I am just an avid learner of knowledge.
That is so true. Now, what did you get your BA in?
So I got my BA in business admin. I got my master's degree in human behavior again. And what I like to tell young people, if you know that you at some point you want to pursue a PhD, what made it easier for me was that I centered my master's degree around my PhD. So I did all the research in my master's program. So when it was time for me to get my PhD, I had so much information already collected from my master's that I was able to apply to my PhD, and it made it easier for me, and it cut so much of my time. Like I said, I got a PhD in 3 years because I was determined. I knew I didn't want to be in school forever. So I told, my professor, we're going to triple up on these classes, give me as many classes as I can take. And sure enough, I did that for a whole year and was able to complete my PhD in 3 years.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That is so awesome. I went back to school, and when I did my undergrad, I only did 2 years, right? And got down there and lost my mind. And then life took over. And I sat back and I looked over my life one day. And like you said, you needed to be the person that, you needed to do that for your children so they can see it. And so I went back to school, and it was something that always haunted me, Keshius, because I would go back to homecoming and people would say, I'm an alumni. And I never shared it. I'm about to get teary-eyed.
Right.
But that word haunted me for years because I couldn't say to me, the definition of alumni is I finished something.
Right.
That's what I kept hearing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would go back and I would smile, but I would cry because I felt like I didn't finish something. So while Damari was in school, Damon was in school, I went back to school.
Oh.
And I got my BA. I went to University of Phoenix. I finished.
Mm-hmm.
And let me tell you this right quick. So the lady told me, she said, if you're going to go back to school, she asked me, what did I do? And I said, I'm a business owner, yada, yada, yada. And she said, well, if you're going to spend the money and go back to school, why don't you get a degree in something that can help you now?
Right.
So let's do business administration
Mm-hmm.
and do a concentration in a small business entrepreneurship. And that way, what the information that you learn in these classes, you can actually apply
Right.
as you're going on. And I did that. I learned a lot. I graduated in 2013 and I cried almost through that whole graduation because now I can say I am an alumni.
Yes.
Before
Yes.
I couldn't say that. And also I started something and I finished it.
Yes.
But more importantly, I was what you said. I became that image and of what I want my kids to understand is that sometimes life happens,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
But you can always finish.
Right.
And I preach that to
Yep.
them. You know, don't give up. You can always finish. So I thank you for sharing,
Yes.
your journey.
Yes.
Because like you said, I mean, sometimes I think it's 10 years that you get to finish your PhD, but you did it in 3 because
Yes.
number 1, you had a plan.
Yep.
And number 2, you were determined.
Yes.
So thank you for sending that word of encouragement out to especially, undergrad and people aspiring to go back to school. I
Yes.
really appreciate that.
Yes, 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 yes. You can do it. You're never too old to pursue your education.
Right.
I never worried about money, how I was going to pay for it. It was going to get paid. That's
Right.
all I knew. My job was to go. My job was to be obedient and be true to myself, because truth be told, I never felt, even though I had these businesses and was successful, I never felt like I deserved a seat at the table because I did not have a college education, right? I felt like people did not take me seriously because I did not have an education. So mine was kind of in reverse. I started the business and then got the degree versus get the degree, then start the business.
Right.
But I'm so glad I did it that way because those businesses helped me through my collegiate journey. You know what I mean? So when you have to talk about your experiences of a business, I was able to bloop, 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 do it real quickly because I had that experience under my belt already before I went to school. I pursued my collegiate degree.
And I also think when you do it that way, it makes the knowledge that you're getting from the classes, it makes sense, right?
Yes.
Because you're already doing the things,
Right.
but now you can link the two together. Like, okay, I've got this action, but now I understand the why.
Exactly.
Or the why not.
That's right. That's right.
I got to stop doing that.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah,
And one of the things that while you were talking, I was thinking while I was pursuing my undergrad, I had this one lady. I shared with her, I think I want to go get my master's or what have you. And she was like, well, are you going to get it in the same thing you got your undergrad in? Right. And I was like, nah, who said I had to do that? I can get it in whatever I want to get it in. Right. And she was like, well, no, you kind of want to stick to, I said, says who? I can do whatever I want to do. Right. So with that, and when her telling me what I shouldn't do, I was like, you clearly don't know who you talking to, lady. If I want to do it, I will do it. Right. And it just so happens I want to do it, and I did it.
Hey, you made up your mind.
Yes, and I made up my mind. That's right.
You know what? I had told you this. I'm going to ask you this question. You have amazing children. You and your husband have set such a loving and encouraging foundation for your children. But your children, when you and your husband named your children, there was some meaning and some thought and purpose behind you naming your children. And I really want to get this on video. So tell the viewers about you, how you and your husband came to name your children and why. Because I think this is so important.
Absolutely. So my oldest daughter, I had her from a previous relationship where we weren't that creative, okay. With her. But she has my mom's namesake. As for my other 4 children, we have a daughter, my 19-year-old, soon to be 20. Her name is Spirit Nefertiti. And we named her Spirit because one of the things I believe is that not only do words have power, but names have power, right?
Yes,
so if you want your children to be a certain way, you got to give them powerful names to where that's their only destiny. You know what I mean? And that was so important to us. Even when my husband and I were dating, we literally sat down and wrote down expectations, what we expect out of each other, what we expected from our children, how we wanted to raise our children. Like we had this plan already together. And
while you were dating.
Yes.
While you were dating.
Yes, while we were dating, when we knew it was going to be serious, we wanted to be strategic about our union, about our marriage, and about the children we wanted to have. All I knew at the time was he was so good to me, I was going to have 10 babies, okay? And I'm just saying. But that's another story though. But yes, so Spirit, and it just so happens that we named Spirit because a movie came out called Spirit the same day she was born. And we couldn't figure out at the time what we wanted to name her. And when that came up, we was like, bam, that's her name. But Spirit got to know she's more than just a spirit. She's also a queen. So we added the Nefertiti to the middle name, right? And I kid you not, she lives up to her name to this day. When she was 2 years old, I've never seen a young lady more connected with God. Like at 2 years old, she's sticking her head out the window. Mommy, how big is God? You know what I mean? Like you're two and you're asking about God. And I said, he's as big as you need him to be, baby. I tell you that he's as big as you need him to be. And then, so that was Spirit. And then I have an 18-year-old. So of course, you know, we were trying to be creative. What's different? What names are different? We named her Promise Soul. And Promise was because, so we had 2 names in mind for Promise. It was either Promise or Righteous, okay? And my husband was like, "Nah, that's too strong. Now we have you can't tell you what if she ain't righteous, Keshius." I said, "Okay, you right." So we'll stick with Promise. So we ended up naming her Promise. And Soul is my mother-in-law. So my mother-in-law's name is Alma, but in Spanish is Soul. So we decided to, you know, call her Soul for her middle name. And then Grace, my next girl. So to be quite honest with you, Tina, I had 1, 2, 3 girls already, right? I was on my 4th girl and I wanted a boy. By the time we had Grace, I said, I don't care what we name her, okay? We can name her Shoo Shoo if we want to, okay? I'm mad, doggone it. Yeah, that's just being real, right? So my mother-in-law started throwing out these names, Ruby and Pearl. I said, oh no, man, I can't give my baby no old lady. No disrespect to rubies or pearls, okay? No disrespect at all. But just for me, it wasn't. So then she said Grace, and I thought Grace was an old lady name too. And I'm like, Grace, what is so good about Grace? But then I went to Sunday school, and one of the Sunday school teachers was like, do you guys really understand the word and the name Grace? And this is when I took on a whole different perspective about her name, because Grace, Grace, what it means to me is God's riches at Christ's expense.
Oh, man,
wow. Come on. That ain't nothing but power. That ain't nothing but power. So when I think about grace, man, yes, grace, God's riches at Christ's expense. Absolutely. And then her middle name, we let a kid name her middle name. Her middle name is Poetry. So it's Grace Poetry.
Wow.
Yep. And then, of course, one more, I got my son Legend. So, oh my gosh, this story is so crazy because so with Legend, we had 3 names for him. One
Okay.
of them was going to be Experience, okay? One of them was going to be Icon, and
Okay.
the other one was going to be Legend, right?
Okay.
But I had this prophetess. I was working at this job and I was answering the phone, and this prophetess called by accident. She actually dialed the wrong number, and she literally just started prophesying over me. I had no idea I was having a boy or anything. And when I tell you, this lady told me, you're going to have a son. He's going to come out with a head full of hair. He's going to be born on this day. And like she said, God sees your struggle. He knows what you've been through. He sent you your husband and blah, blah, blah. And I'm sitting up here like, how does this lady know these things? And sure enough, she was right on time. He came out with a head full of hair. He was born within that date time frame that she said he was going to be born. And when I tell you, he is, you know, my girls are my world too, but my son, hey, that's the love of my life, man. Boy, besides my man, but yeah, my boy, yeah, I tell you, that's my son, my dude. Yep. So that's how we came up with their names.
but it goes back to what you were saying, that how names are powerful. Because when I started the show, I said, you know, all of your children have lived up to their name. Yes. And it's so important for us to give them, you start the identity through the name.
Yes.
Right. And it's so important for us to do that. And I just thank you for sharing that, because I just think that it's so, you know, you have people having COVID babies, you got everything going on, right? And then you have some people wondering, and I'm going to put it out there, you have some people wondering, you know, why is this child going down this road?
Right.
Well, let's start with
their name.
Yeah. You know, I mean, and then I think it carries the spirit.
Yes, you know what I mean? Yes. Yeah. And you give, and when you give them a name like Cavassier, I mean, come on, what you speaking of a cognac? You know, it's like you got. So yes, you do. You must be mindful of what you name your kids. Shout out to all the cognacs and the Cavassiers too. Let's be clear, nothing against y'all.
but we just saying.
We just saying, yeah.
We just saying, right? Okay. At the beginning of the show, you mentioned about your master's degree, and your master's and your PhD, and you talked a little bit about you mentioned about people understanding that they're a product of their environment. Keshius, I think this is one topic. Now, I know I invited you on here to talk about something else, but we're gonna talk about this.
That's fine. Let's go with it. Let's go with it.
You know, people have to understand that you come out of, say, a XYZ environment, right?
Yep.
And if you don't get in tune with that, I think you end up reliving it in some fashion, shape, or form, shape or fashion is what I'm trying to say, right?
Yes.
And so let's talk a little bit about that, because and I'm gonna tell you why. So, you know, when I was raised, my dad had passed when I was small, and so my mom at that time was a single parent, just me and my brother. All my other siblings was raised with both parents, and we were, right. My brother was a senior in high school, and dad passed. So I'm in the 7th grade. He's a senior. So he's about to go out into the world. No dad. I'm going into high school. No dad.
Right.
Right. And then you have a mom that does the best that she can.
Right.
And so things happen. And you're thinking that if I can just get out the household, then I'm just going to be all right.
Right.
But if you don't deal with that happened in the household, you're going to repeat it, right? Because we're all a product of our environment,
right?
So let's talk about that.
Definitely. I just, as you were speaking, I was just thinking just about my upbringing. So, you know, I tell people I went from poverty to PhD, okay? Because that's how I grew up. Low income, domestic violence, all of that stuff, right? And excuse me, I mentioned earlier that I had a baby at 18 years old, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because at that time, I felt like I wasn't loved. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We grew up in a household where we were never told, I love you. You understand? Those were like foreign words. I never heard those words. You understand? And so when I say I had a baby at 18, most people would think, man, you young. Why are you going to have a baby at 18? But my daughter gave me purpose.
Yeah.
You understand? Like she
Yes.
gave me a reason to want to do better, to want to
Yes.
be a good example, to get up out of the situation I was in. I could have easily just stuck and stayed in that environment and said, okay, this is as good as it gets,
Right.
right? But because at a young age I knew God had a plan for my life, my
Mm-hmm.
whole mindset was like, okay, everybody that said I can't make it at 18, watch me. Like I
Right.
got energized. I got, it made me want to be the best mom I could be. It
Mm-hmm.
made me want to pursue everything that God has in store for me, right? And one thing I know, that if God gives us dominion over all things, that means anything is possible. I
Right.
can do,
Correct.
be anything. You know what
Anything.
I mean?
Yep.
And until
Yep.
I figured it out, I was always going to take steps to move me closer and
Mm-hmm.
closer and closer and closer. And before long, I just started. I literally at 10 years old, I knew my purpose. I knew that
Mm.
God had something greater for me. Okay.
Right.
And
Right.
one thing I had a gift of was making people laugh.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I didn't know what God was going to do with that. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? And
Right.
it just so happens that He
Mm-hmm.
did this with it. I became a life coach. I became a motivator and inspiration speaker. All of those
Mm-hmm.
things. But everything that I went through as a kid prepared me for who I am today. You
Right.
understand? I
Right.
have richness to my story. I can speak to you guys about several topics, because
Mm-hmm.
even though going through it at the time was hard, it built me. You
Right.
understand? It
Mm-hmm.
built me to be that voice for anybody that feel like they can't do it, that they're on the verge of giving up. No, ma'am. All you got to do is keep putting one foot in front of the other. So I was able to use those experiences and build me instead of break me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's so important, because we look at people sometimes, and you'll hear people say, "Oh, she's just crazy,"
Yes.
or "Oh, he's just crazy."
Yes.
And I tell people, no, there's a story behind the action. I'll say it
Yes.
again. There's a
Yes.
story behind the action, because people are just not just blank, right?
Right.
There's
Right.
a reason behind it. Now, the
Mm-hmm.
question is, do you want to take time out to to find out the reason,
Right.
right? Which means you
Mm-hmm.
have to engage in the person,
Mm-hmm.
or do you want to continue to characterize, these people as
Right.
this,
Right.
right? And so I had to learn that um, I'm not the author of me,
Yes.
but I have a hand in controlling and molding who I want me to turn out to be, because of my choices,
That's right.
right? And I've had to teach my children that your life is nothing but a series of choices that
Yep.
you make. Now,
Yes.
if
Yep.
you make the wrong choice, I want you to brush yourself off
Right.
and make another choice.
Right.
It's just that simple, you know.
Yeah.
But we have to understand that we are a product of our environments
We
and where we
yeah.
come from, and we have to deal with that.
Yes, we definitely have to deal with it. I also think about when you talk about being a product of your environment. So I grew up without my dad, right? I
Mhm,
guess I knew him the first couple of years of my life, but then after
mhm,
that, I had no connection, no contact with him. And I know I've always had the ability to make lemonade out of lemons, no matter what it is. If you can
mhm.
think it's negative, then doggone it, you can fix your mind and think it's positive,
That's
whatever.
right.
You know what I
That's right.
mean? And
Mhm,
so with that, I remember, how a lot of kids who grow up without their dads for whatever reason, it affects them in a negative way, right? But I chose to affect me in a positive way because, like you said, you have choices, right? You could choose to let it affect you negatively or positively.
Right.
So, and I just thank God for that ability, because when I think about what if my dad was in my life, my dad is a drug addict, right? Now, imagine if he was in my life, how I could have turned out.
Right.
So I thank God that that experience of me not having him in my life, you know what I mean? Again, it shaped me in so many ways, because I realized, okay, the type of man that I want, that I definitely don't want a man who's on drugs, okay?
Right.
And
Right.
it was important for me to make sure I found a man who would love me, who would love our children,
Yeah.
who would pour into my spirit. So everything that I did not get as a child, I
Right.
wanted to make sure I did not repeat those same habits as an adult with my own kids. You
Right.
understand? And
Right.
because I was able to recognize that at a young age, you know, it helped me out in my parenting styles, in how I talk to my kids, and how I allow my kids to have their own voice, whether I agree with it or not. You know what
Right.
I
Right.
mean?
Right.
But
Yeah.
again, those experiences, like you said, it shaped me into everything, into the woman that I am. Yes.
Right. 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 Yeah. You have to embrace them.
Yes, you do. The
Yeah.
good and the bad. That's
The
the
good and the
thing.
bad.
The
Yeah.
good and the bad. The
You
good and
sure
the bad.
do. Well, I mentioned in the beginning that you were an author. So
Yes.
let's talk about what interested you or drove you to become an author. What's the
Yes.
story?
So in high school, I was an avid writer. Okay. I used to have a thick book of poetry, right? That's the all I would write, just poetry or what have you. And one time I lost my book. And when I tell you I was 17, and it devastated me until 2013. Okay. In 2013, that's when God was like, okay, you got a book in you. And I'm like, no, I don't want to lose this other book if I write it or what have you.
Right.
And it's so crazy because I remember as a child, I was always teased about how dark I was. My hair was
Really?
short. How dare they, right? They clearly not looking at the same person, but I digress. Yeah. But so I was just teased about the way I look. And I just remember thinking, I had no book to open up to remind me that I was beautiful, right? So fast forward to now, I have 4 girls of my own. And I know I said, I don't want them to ever struggle with self-image. I don't want them to ever feel that they're not beautiful. Well, the only way for me to make them feel that they're not beautiful, that they are beautiful, is to write a book about them. So actually, my first character, who is Pepper Storm, that's my daughter. That's my middle daughter. That's a reminder that, baby, your afro puffs are beautiful. Your kinky hair is amazing. Your wide nose is just the way it should be. Your lips are so full, baby, you can cool soup. Okay, like I wanted my children to have confidence. You understand? So, and that's what the first book is about, to just love the skin that you are in, to embrace everything that makes you beautiful. So they kind of inspired my first book of Who is Pepper Storm.
Well, what did she say when you explained to her that the cover and the book was her? The cover was her.
Listen, she loved it because I have 2 children that are professional actors, and she's the first one that started acting. So she was already used to, being on covers and all of that good stuff. And so I used her to my advantage. As a matter of fact, when I would go storytell, I would bring her with me. Okay. And we up there singing the Pepper Storm song, and she's engaging with the kids. She absolutely loved it. And she's the one who I think will follow in my footsteps. She's the one that's most like me in terms of creative, that entrepreneur spirit. And so I think she's the one that will pick up, where I am, or where I'll leave off.
Okay. And then after that, what was your second book?
So my second book was called Pepper Storm and the Gang, because I wanted to show diversity in the book, right? And we all know bullying is always an issue in school or what have you. But with this particular book, what I like about Pepper Storm and the Gang is that Pepper Storm needs the help of her friends to tell a story about bullying. But what I did purposely and intentionally is all the characters that are in that book are her actual friends. Okay, these
Really?
are kids in our neighborhood. One of them is her cousin. You know what I mean? So I wanted to make sure representation was in full effect. So anything that I write is always going to be about people that I know.
Okay. Okay. So let me ask you this. Now, did you self-publish the book or did you use a publishing agency?
So I self-published all my books.
Okay.
All of my books are self-published. And I tell people, because a lot of times people have books in them, but they're like, oh, the publishing. And I
Yeah.
was like, that's the small part. The hardest part you need to do is finish the book. You understand? All the other
Yeah, it
stuff
is.
can be worked out. I like self-publishing because I like to know exactly what's going on. What's going on
Mhm.
with the publishing, with the
Mhm.
ISBN,
Right.
with everything, right? So and it was an opportunity to where I could pay somebody to publish the book for me. But I
Mhm.
tell anybody, if you can read and write, follow instructions, you can do it yourself.
Right.
So I started doing it myself. And when I got that first book under my belt, I was like, oh, this is it. I'm gonna publish all my books. So I
Yeah.
self-published every book that I have, and I have 2 more in publication right now.
Now did you get an editor? Because I know you have a writing background, but did you get an editor to help you edit the book?
Yes. So my mother-in-law, she edits all of my books. Now, if you ask me to write a novel, no.
No.
Okay. I
Okay.
like to write children's books because you can use your imagination. I'm really like a big kid, okay? But you
Mhm.
can use your imagination. You can be as creative as you want to be, and you don't have to worry about the book being 500 pages. Just say
Right.
what you need to say, make it fun and make it enjoyable, right? So
Right.
so that's what led me down the path of writing children's books, because they were so easy for me and they flowed, and my imagination is like like all every I have a great wide imagination. So that's what led me to my second book, Pepper Storm and the Gang. And it's just a great book about bullying and why you shouldn't bully. And typically, we have a problem with, back then it was the dark skinned girls who was who the people didn't like, but I made
Yeah.
the character in Pepper Storm and the Gang an albino, a light skinned girl who didn't
Oh,
like being light skinned. She wanted to
okay.
be dark
Dark
skinned.
skin. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That was neat. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I also read on your website that you now have a journal.
Yes.
Let's talk about that.
Yes. So which journal are you speaking of? Are you
I think it was Purposeful Life
Oh,
or
yeah. Okay,
Journal.
yeah. So
Yeah.
it's a self-help book. It's not
Definitely.
a journal,
Okay.
it's a self-help book, and it's
Okay.
called My Purpose Journey. It's a guide to
Okay.
living a purposeful lifestyle. Oh my goodness. I never in a million years thought that I would be writing a self-help book. Okay. Because again, it's like it's gonna be a whole bunch of pages. I don't know. I might get tired.
Mhm.
But when I tell you one thing, I have the ability of is God speaks to me. He gives me confirmations in my dreams, right? That's
Okay.
how I knew this book had to be written. Okay. And that's with
Okay.
all of my books. And I'm like, okay, well, if it's of you, God, send me a sign. Sure enough, I go to sleep and that's your sign, Keshius, get to writing that book. And the great thing about this book is really what I love about this book is like a labor of love, because in 2019, I lost my mom, right? I had to
Mhm.
quit my job. I became a full-time caregiver, doctor's appointments, meal preps, and she's laying in the hospital, like literally on her deathbed, right? And I'm all while pursuing a PhD, okay, mind you. And I'm like, mommy, I can't. I'm just gonna just quit. I can't. I need to be able to focus on you. Blah 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 blah.
Mhm.
And she was like, no, baby, don't worry about what I look like. You pursue that PhD. You keep going no matter what. I said, okay, fast forward to now, I'm Dr. Williams. And
Mhm.
from that experience, it inspired me to write a book to empower women to know that no matter what life throws at you, because life throw a lot of stuff at us, right? But
Mhm.
if you cannot quit, you got to keep putting one foot in front of the other, no matter
Right.
how bad it seems, no matter how you feel. Because if you quit, it's over.
Yeah.
But if you keep taking them small steps, them
Yeah.
small steps turn into big steps. And before long, you will have accomplished your goal, which is what
Right.
I did. So my purpose journey is all about my journey, what led me to being the person that I am, to believe in the things that I believe, to act and live and think and speak the way I do, because it's
Right.
all centered on purpose.
Right.
It's on
Right.
purpose.
Right.
It's on
Correct.
purpose. It's on purpose.
So where can people purchase your journey self help book
Yes,
and your other children's books? Where can they go to purchase those items?
absolutely. So you can go to my website at
I'll put it
KeshiusWilliams.com.
back up again. Okay.
Okay. You you can go to my website at KeshiusWilliams.com. That's KESHIUS Williams.com, and purchase any of my books. I'm also a life coach. So if you would like to schedule a free consultation, you are more than welcome to do so. And if you need me to come speak at your school, if keynote speaker, storytell, whatever the case is, just go to my website. It's a lot of information on there. You'll get
Mhm.
an opportunity to see a little bit about who I am and what I do. Yes, so you can go to KeshiusWilliams.com.
Now let's talk about you being a life coach. Let's talk
Yes.
about the journey to that. So tell us, what interested you about that, and how did you get into that business?
Yes. So I've always, like I said earlier, I've always been able to been that person to make lemonade out of lemons, right?
Mhm.
And even when I was going through things as a child, I always smiled. I was always able to not look at my situation and help others. You know what I mean? So it's been in me for the longest. It's been in me for the longest. And I would always remember, my husband would tell me, I would tell him, babe, I feel like I need to be doing more. It's more to life. God wants me to be doing something else. And he would say, babe, you're doing enough already. And I said, no, it's something else.
It's
It's
something
something
else.
else. I don't know what it is, right? I don't know what it is. And so fast forward to now, I just really I've always been a life coach, but now I'm actually walking in it and
Right.
owning what I am and who I am, right?
Right.
And I tell you, it's just been such an amazing journey, because a lot of people think it's about helping you or helping others, but when I help others, I help myself.
Mhm.
Because everything I'm telling you, I'm implementing into my own life. I can't tell you what to do and I not do it. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
everything, every direction, goal, whatever it is that I give you or suggest to you, or action plan I suggest to you, I'm actually walking it. I'm
Right.
testing it out. Because we are all a work in progress. And just because you're a life coach doesn't mean you have everything together.
Right.
However, I have the ability to recognize when I'm going left and I need to go right, and I
Right.
can get myself back on track. So I kind of just been walking into this whole purpose journey, for quite some time now. And I decided to call my book My Purpose Journey, if I may share this with you.
Mhm.
Is because when you talk about purpose, people think that purpose is attached to like an accolade, a thing, a job, and you hear a lot of people saying, well, what is my purpose? What is my purpose? What is my purpose? Listen, if we just gonna be honest, when you were created, this is just real talk. When you were created, it was a million sperm trying to get to that one egg, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
But God chose you. That
Mhm.
alone is purpose. That
Right.
means you got work to do, and you got to do that work for him. When
Right.
I'm coaching people, it ain't for you, it's for him. I'm doing his work, because at the end of the day, when I get through them to them pearly gates, I want him to be like, well done. That was some good advice you gave her. I'm glad you told him that. I appreciate you being a soldier for me. You know what I mean? That's why I do it. That's why I do it, because my life is not my own. You understand? It's about something greater and bigger than me. It is.
Yeah.
It's about leaving this world better than what we found it. And every day I get up, every day God blesses me with breath in my body. I step on that devil's neck and get to work.
Right. I heard somebody say one time that as you live, you should walk out your eulogy. Your life should be your eulogy. So you should never wonder what we're going to say about that person. Okay, but what did that person do? How did that person touch you? You know, what do you want people to remember you by? Right. So your life should be a walking eulogy. And I think when I heard that gentleman say that, it changed my perspective about life. Right. And so, you know, when I first started, you know, creating these different companies, it was about, you know, I really like to do this. So then I really like to do that. And then as I have gotten older, it's all about legacy. So now I'm trying to figure out how can all the things that I have my hands in leave a legacy for my unborn grandchildren.
Right.
So now the conversation I have with my children is I'm doing this for my unborn grandchildren. Right. And that, to me, that's me living in that purpose.
Yes.
Right? And walking out that purpose.
Yes.
So for those people who want to, they're thinking about getting a life coach, what things should they consider when interviewing a life coach?
Yes. So when you're thinking about getting a life coach, I would say that it has to be a connection, right? So I'm big on energy. I can feel people's energy, man. I tell you, listen, I can feel people's energy a mile away. You don't have to say nothing. You could just walk past me. I'll be like, you know, like, yes, I'm so big on energy. So I would say get a feel for the coach's energy. You understand? Make sure that you can relate to them, you understand, and just, you know, be honest when you know, ask questions. Like, I'm an open book. Anything you want to know about me, you can ask. I may or may not tell you, but you can show ask the question. Okay.
Ask anyway.
But yes, ask questions, and I would also suggest, when you're looking for a life coach, have your questions ahead of time. Write them down ahead of time so that you won't forget when you actually meet with the life coach. Yeah.
So what is one of the biggest challenges that you may have ran into when trying to help a client?
Ooh. Well, I won't say it was a challenge for me per se.
Right.
I would say it was a challenge for them. Like, and I had no idea this was happening. Okay. But I had a couple who were at a crossroads in their marriage. And it was just, you know, they didn't share it with me, and we decided to go on a couples trip, right? Just to take them on a couples trip. And so we went whitewater rafting.
Oh,
right. And the whole time before we go in whitewater rafting, we're just encouraging the both of them, you know, everything is fine. Y'all gonna be okay. You know what I mean? You just gotta stick it out. You know, this is what marriage is made of, all of that good stuff, right?
Right.
So we go to whitewater rafting. And the whole time, this young lady was like, I feel like I'm gonna fall in the water. I'm gonna fall in the water, like spazzing all the way out, right? So then the guide, he was like, he said, hit the deck, right? Because we were getting ready to go into like one of those little whirlwinds, right? Boy, me and my husband hit the deck so hard, but when we hit the deck, the person fell out the boat, okay? And boy, when I tell you, I'm saying this to say, because the moment she fell out, Guess where her husband's hand was? In that water, trying to pull her out of that water. Okay.
Yeah.
It was in there, and she was like, she was terrified when she finally came up. She was terrified, like literally terrified. She said, "I thought my life was it flashed before my eyes, right?" And on the way home, she said, that saved our marriage. She said, what did my husband do when I fell in the water? I said, he went in that water to get you. I said, you talking about you at a crossroads and you ready to call it quits. This man got your back. He didn't think about his life or him going in the world.
Wow.
All he wanted to do was save his wife. And she said, that's the confirmation I needed right there. And they're happily married to this day.
Wow.
Yes.
That is, that was a good one.
Yep.
That was a good one. Yeah. So well, I was going to say, sometimes people go to marriage counseling, but a life coach can help you with that.
Absolutely. I want you to I help you visualize what your future is. And we set action steps to make sure you accomplish those things. That's it. I'm more of future focused. Therapy is more like dealing with past trauma and all of that good stuff. I can do that, but my specialty is life coaching, because I am like your biggest cheerleader. I want to see everybody win. I want to see everybody successful. And if I have any knowledge that I can give or provide to you to make sure you accomplish that, then that's what I'm going to do. And oh man, it makes me feel so good to know that my purpose, what I'm doing, what God has called me to do, is actually helping somebody to be greater, to be better. And in turn, they're leaving the world better because they're working on themselves.
Right. And you also give them another perspective.
Yes.
To see it from. I was watching Creflo Dollar one day, and he was talking about divorce. And he was saying that he counsels a lot of his church members that are going through divorce. And what he found out, that the only thing that was wrong was there was one partner more selfish than the other. And he said that once they decided to go through the divorce, and he met back with them, especially with the one that initiated the divorce, he asked them one question: could it have been saved? He said, and every last time that person comes back and says yes. The selfish one comes back and says yes, because they made it about themselves, not thinking about the family and the people that are connected to them. And when it was all said and done and that person had to sit by themselves, they always came back and told him it could have been worked out.
Yes. That's true. That's true.
But you need somebody to help you. If you want to work it out, it can be worked out. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yep. And that's the great thing about life coaching, because you don't take sides, right? You're the mediator. You know what I mean? And if you guys, if both parties have the same end goal, then we can work towards that. You know what I mean? We can work towards making sure you guys get to the end goal, not only together, but happily. You understand? Happily together. So yes, that's where the life coach comes in as the mediator. And also, I also, because my specialty or my ideal group of people are like those in high-powered positions, those with high-stress jobs, or now my dream client, I would love to coach celebrity clients, okay? But I can coach anyone. But I just feel like, when you're in these high-powered positions or high-powered jobs, you are expected to be a certain way, to have it all together, to know, to not sweat, you know what I mean, when you're faced with adversity. But you're doing that for all of these people, but you have nobody to just dump it on. You know what I mean? That's where I come in at. When you're stressed at work and you got a lot of stuff on your plate, dump it all on me. That's
Okay.
what I'm here for. Let me help you, unpack all of that and get you back on track and get you to where you need to be and to keep you pushing to go another week and another month and another year. So that's what I really like about my job and my role as a life coach is that I'm here. I'm literally here for whoever needs me, and
Okay.
I'm available even when after hours, if you have a problem or you just need some advice. I'm open all the time. Send me a text. You know what I mean? Send me an email. I respond to my clients right away because I feel like you're not just going to be calling me just to be calling me. You know what I
Right.
mean? So
Right.
it must be something that you need. I'm that coach that make myself available to you when you
Mhm.
need me to be.
Right. Right. Yeah. Tell you the truth. You were doing it in the hallway when we were going to the PTA.
Yep.
You were doing it in the hallway when we were doing fundraisers.
Yep. Yep.
Because and when you talked about how you can really feel and connect with people's spirits, I've seen you do that.
Yeah.
I've seen it.
Wow.
And you were right on it. You were right on it. So
Yeah.
yeah. Listen, if you need a life coach, we want you to contact Dr. Keshius Williams. And
Yes.
I'm going to tell you this: you're going to have a good time.
Yeah.
You're going to have a good time because you know what? The world and everything that we're going through is so serious, right?
Yes.
You
Oh,
got to
Lord.
have someone that can give you a different perspective, a
Yes.
lighter side, and make
Yes.
you laugh sometimes. Because if you can't
Yes.
laugh at yourself,
Yes.
I mean, you got to be able to laugh at yourself
That's right.
sometimes to get through it. Because laughter is the best medicine, right?
Absolutely.
Right. Okay. So I'm going to ask you this. We're going to go back to writing the book. So
Okay.
if there's somebody out there that's an aspiring writer, what advice would you give them?
So the advice I would give them is to write, to finish the hard. That is the hardest part, is to finish your book. You know what I mean? Because you got it, everyone has a story to tell.
Right.
And everyone needs to hear your story because
Right.
no story is the same. You
Right.
right?
That's true.
So
That's true.
if we all have a story to tell, the first thing you need to do is start writing. It
Okay. So
doesn't
just
matter
start
if it
writing.
makes sense or
Okay.
not. Just start writing. And if you want to do it strategically, think about, because for me, when I wrote my self-help book, I had an outline, right? I
Okay.
said, okay, what words stand out to me? So I have words like forgiveness,
Mm-hmm.
guarding your tongue, guarding your thoughts, you know what I mean? So those kind of words stood out to me, and I decided to write about them and tell how they apply to my life and how you can apply them to your life. So I would say, if you have a book, if you want to write, start writing. Think about a title that may inspire you to what you want your book to be about. Think about a title that you would call. Think about what the world needs to hear.
Right.
And then tell the story
Right.
through
Right.
your own experiences.
Right. Let me ask you this: if once the person starts writing,
Mm-hmm.
is there places that they can go to get an editor? Is there like a writers group that people can join to kind of get some advice and get some help?
Yes. Yes. So what I have found in this journey is that Facebook, they have a lot of Facebook groups, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
for writers,
Okay.
for aspiring authors, for, you know what I mean? So they join as many Facebook groups related to writing as possible, because you get inspired, you get to hear other people's stories,
Right.
you get to come up with your own ideas. They may inspire you to come up with an idea to add to your book that you weren't thinking about. So I would definitely tell them to join different Facebook groups. And in terms of editing, you just put it out there.
Okay.
It was my luck that my mother-in-law, she edits my children's books, but then for this self-help book, I actually hired the guy who edited my dissertation to do it.
Oh, that was okay.
Exactly. So he
Wow.
already knew, my flow, how I write, and all of that good stuff. And he was available. You know what I mean? So, and what people don't realize is, even though you hire an editor, you get an editor to edit your book, they're still going to miss some things, right?
Right,
So you
right,
can't just give your book to the editor and think, okay, it's perfect, I'm just going to publish. Absolutely not. You
right.
still have to reread your book yourself. Make sure you catch anything that he may have left out or the editor may have left out. And then you keep revising it. You keep revising it, keep revising it. So I would tell people, if you're looking for an editor, I can definitely direct you to several editors, because I do know editors. But I would also suggest, you read your book first. After you finish it, read it. Get it as good as you want it to be, and then give it to your editor to tweak it, modify it, and then you kind of just go from there.
Okay. I found this quote on your website,
Mm-hmm.
and it says that you believe that when you live on purpose and not for a purpose, you live with intent. Before we end the show, I want you to speak to the viewers and give us some tips of how to live a purposeful life.
Ooh, I'm so glad you asked that. So when I say you have to live, like, again, if we know that out of all the sperm in the world, God chose us to be in this world, right? That's perfect purpose, right? So that means our life is not ours, it's for him, right? So when you are living a purposeful lifestyle, you are intentionally living to please him, right? So that means, what does that mean? That means, okay, I need to be mindful of my thoughts. You understand? Because if they are not of him, I need to change them, right? That means I need to be mindful of my words, because if I'm not speaking goodness into the world, into the atmosphere, then I'm doing something wrong, right?
Correct.
If I'm not actually, if I'm not intentionally watching my actions, right? How I treat people. If I'm not intentionally watching my actions, then I'm not living a purposeful lifestyle. So we have to intentionally be mindful of our thoughts, our words, and our actions. And in that process, it will lead you to your purpose, because at the end of the day, if we're here to make this world better, if you're doing all of those things intentionally,
right,
then you are walking in purpose.
Wow. Keshius, thank you so much
You
for
are so
saying yes.
welcome.
We would definitely have you back on the show for another topic.
Right.
Because you are full of wealth of knowledge. And
Thank
so,
you.
yes, we would definitely have you back on. But we want to tell everybody to go to KeshiusWilliams.com. You can purchase the book. Somebody just left a comment saying that they just booked a free consultation.
Ah!
Yeah. And then Ben Miller says, be intentional with my thoughts, words, and actions.
That's right.
And then he said, amen. It will lead us into our purpose.
That's right. That's
Keshius,
right.
thank you so much.
Oh,
Everybody,
thank you so much.
this is Tina Dawson with True Blue Designs, and we just thank you so much for tuning in. We will see you next week, same time, same place. You hold on, Keshius.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Wow.